हेलो एवरीवन, वेलकम टू माय अनदर वीडियो ऑफ स्नोफ्लेक। आज की वीडियो में हम लोग बात करने वाले हैं स्नोफ्लेक कॉस्ट ऑप्टिमाइजेशन के बारे में। तो टू स्टार्ट विद द स्नोफ्लेक, अगर स्नोफ्लेक के किसी एप्लीकेशन को आपको रन करना है या स्नोफ्लेक में कोई प्रोजेक्ट स्टार्ट करना है, तो आप जस्ट स्नोफ्लेक में अकाउंट बनाओ, उस पर काम करना चालू कर सकते हैं। लेकिन प्रॉब्लम कब होती है कि जब वो एप्लीकेशन बड़ी हो जाती है, थोड़ी कॉम्प्लेक्स हो जाती है, तो वहाँ पे कॉस्ट का प्रॉब्लम होना शुरू हो जाता है। आपने जो कॉस्ट एक्सपेक्ट किया था या आपकी कंपनी ने, आपके प्रोजेक्ट ने जो कॉस्ट एक्सपेक्ट किया था, उससे कहीं ज़्यादा कॉस्ट आने लगता है स्नोफ्लेक में। तो स्नोफ्लेक के साथ ये प्रॉब्लम है कि अगर आप अच्छे तरीके से मैनेज नहीं करेंगे स्नोफ्लेक के सर्विसेज को, उसके ऑब्जेक्ट को, तो कॉस्ट काफ़ी ज़्यादा हो सकती है। तो आज के वीडियो में हम लोग समझेंगे क्या क्या हम लोग स्टेप्स ले सकते हैं एज ए डेवलपर, एज ए एडमिन पर्सन, एज ए मैनेजर, ताकि हम लोग अपने स्नोफ्लेक एप्लीकेशन या स्नोफ्लेक अकाउंट का जो कॉस्ट है उसको कम कर सकें। दोस्तों, आप अगर मेरे चैनल में नए हैं तो प्लीज चैनल को सब्सक्राइब करें, और वीडियो पसंद है तो वीडियो को लाइक और शेयर जरूर करें। द फर्स्ट एंड इंपॉर्टेंट कंपोनेंट ऑफ स्नोफ्लेक इज द वेयर हाउस, जहाँ पे प्रोसेसिंग होती है, जहाँ से कंप्यूटेशन होता है, जिसे हम लोग वर्चुअल वेयर हाउस बोलते हैं। तो जहाँ से कंप्यूट होती है तो मैक्सिमम जो कॉस्ट है वहां से ही आती है। तो वेयर हाउस आप जब भी बनाए तो उसको ऑटो सस्पेंड मोड में जरूर रखें, और हमेशा ध्यान रखें कि वेयर हाउस जब यूज नहीं हो रही है तो वो एक्टिव नहीं हो, क्योंकि वेयर हाउस अगर एक्टिव होगी तो उसमें कॉस्ट लगेगा। सेकेंड थिंग, जब भी वेयर हाउस आप बनाते हो, एज ए एडमिन पर्सन आप वेयर हाउस बना सकते हो। तो जब भी आप वेयर हाउस बनाते हो तो उसको इनिशियली सस्पेंड मोड में रखो, क्योंकि बहुत बार वेयर हाउस बनाने के बाद कुछ समय होता है, उसके बाद हम लोग वहाँ पे किसी तरह का जॉब्स रन करते हैं। जब भी स्नोफ्लेक अकाउंट, जब न्यू स्नोफ्लेक अकाउंट आप क्रिएट करते हो फॉर टेस्टिंग पर्पस, फॉर डेवलपिंग पर्पस, एनीथिंग, तो उसमें बाय डिफॉल्ट करके एक वेयर हाउस आती है, कंप्यूट अंडरस्कोर WH। तो उस वेयर हाउस को आप डिलीट कर दें एंड जस्ट क्रिएट योर मोस्ट कॉस्ट इफेक्टिव एंड फंक्शनल वेयर हाउस। क्योंकि जो बाय डिफॉल्ट वेयर हाउस होती है, शायद वो आपके पर्पस के लिए काम नहीं हो, या तो परफॉर्मेंस हिट करेगा या तो कॉस्ट हिट करेगा। तो आप अपने हिसाब से वेयर हाउस जो मोस्ट कॉस्ट ऑप्टिमाइज एंड परफॉर्मेंस ओरिएंटेड रहे। तो ये तो था वेयर हाउस के बारे में। नाउ वी हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड कि कॉस्ट किस किस डायरेक्शन में जाती है हमारे स्नोफ्लेक में। द फर्स्ट इज द कंप्यूट कॉस्ट, द सेकंड इज द स्टोरेज कॉस्ट, एंड द थर्ड एंड इंपॉर्टेंट इज द क्लाउड सर्विसेज कॉस्ट। सो एज आई हैव मेंशन्ड, देयर आर थ्री मेन डिवीजन ऑफ द कॉस्ट इन स्नोफ्लेक। एक है कंप्यूट, द सेकंड इज स्टोरेज, एंड द थर्ड इज क्लाउड सर्विस कॉस्ट। सो इन द कंप्यूट कॉस्ट, द मेनली कॉस्ट कम्स फ्रॉम द वेयर हाउस कंप्यूट, जो अभी हम लोग ने डिस्कस किया वेयर हाउस स्टार्टिंग ऑफ दिस सेशन। Then there is a clustering cost, in which the automatic clustering consumes more cost. Metadized views, when you create a metadized views. So metadized views is the output of some complex queries, or you want to keep the output of some of the queries so that it can be used in the later part in some reporting areas. So it contains the data. So metadized views consume it, it gives you a cost. Then there is a cross cloud replication that also gives you Snowflake cost. The second is storage. In storage, we have tables, datas, time travel, fail safe, stages. So we have to take care of all these objects, and to understand that how these services can be used to mostly cost optimize Snowflake application. The third is the cloud service cost, in which when the cloud means आप जब web browser पे जब login करते हो Snowflake को, and in the cloud layer the authentication takes place, that also consumes a cost. Infra management, which takes place from the cloud itself, when you manage the cluster and everything from the UI based. So then access control, when you do the query parsing, you want to look into the query parsing, that also consumes a cost. So we'll look into some of the things and we'll understand that how to optimize the Snowflake cost. Before we move further, the one more important thing is regarding the cost is the cost of the Snowflake also depends on which kind of edition you have taken. Like it's an enterprise edition or is it a standard edition? Also, which cloud provider you are using. I mean, like Snowflake is on which of the cloud? Is it in AWS or Azure? And the third is on which region that cloud is hosted. So these all things combined together gives you the cost of the Snowflake. We call it the cost of the Snowflake is given in a credit. So it doesn't mean that one credit equal to $1, depending on the cost. So I have opened the pricing option here. You can see here, like if the platform is AWS and the region is US East, so standard cost, one credit equal to $2. Similarly, in the enterprise, one credit is equal to $3. Similarly, we have different edition. So if you change AWS to, for example, Azure, you will see the price. In this case, it has not changed. So what I will do in AWS, we'll go into different like Sydney area. You can see the cost has changed. If you change the region, Dublin, the cost has changed. So depending on the AWS platform and the region combined, you will have a different cost, and also on which of the edition, like standard, enterprise, or business edition, which of the edition you are using. Depending on that, the cost also depends. Now coming back to our topic. Now coming to the tables. So Snowflake mainly have a three different table. One is the permanent table, the second is the temporary table, and there is a transient table. Permanent table consumes a lot of cost. It has more credit. Because in permanent table you have a time travel of 0 to 90 days. By default it's 0 to 90 days. You can change it. The fail safe, like if a table is deleted, so you'll have a different data, like replication of that. The fail safe is of safe. So the fail safe of permanent table is of 7 days, and that cannot be changed. In permanent table, the time travel days is configurable, but the fail safe of 7 days is not configurable. Transient and temporal table, you can have 0 to 1 day of time lapse. That is also configurable, and there is no fail safe options, and there is no fail safe facilities there. So now understand this as an example, like you have one table of permanent table that is having a 10 GB of data. You have loaded it with a 10 GB of data. So after 2 3 days, you added one more 5 more GB of data, so it becomes 15 GB. And after 4 or 5 days, you deleted that table. So when you delete that table, it doesn't mean that on the fifth day, for example, on the fifth day you have deleted the table. It doesn't mean that on the fifth day, the cost there will be zero cost for the table. There will be cost because the time travel will be there for 90 days. Second, after 90 days, the 7 days will be the fail safe. So till 97 days, your cost will be occurred for this permanent table, although you have deleted this table on the fifth day. So this you have to keep in mind when you are creating a permanent table. So when your data is very much important, at that time you create a permanent table. You want the data to persist always, then you create a permanent table. Otherwise, don't create a permanent table. So we have to always keep in mind whenever we create a permanent table. And the worst thing is, by default, when you write the command create table in a Snowflake, by default it creates a permanent table. So you have to write the word temporal or transient while creating the table, then only it creates a temporal or transient table. So now we'll discuss about the stages. So we know basically there are two important types of stages in Snowflake. One is internal and one is external. So we have other two stages also. User stage, whenever any user is created in a Snowflake, so that user have the stages. Whenever you create a table, the table also has the stages. Now there is a difference in this. So in the user stage, first of all, in external stage there is no cost, but there is a catch in that. I'll just discuss later on. So first, in the user stage, the storage limit is unlimited in all user stage, table stage, and internal stage. But the table stage and internal stage can be controlled by RBAC feature, role-based access. But user stage don't have the RBAC restriction or RBAC feature. So whenever you create a user, and if that user is not doing any important job, just for testing purpose or some development purpose, and that user is not being logged in every time, then most probably the stage space which the user has consumed will occur a credit or will create a Snowflake cost or Snowflake credit. So whenever, if the user is not being logged, then, or if a user is not logged in into it, not being used in the Snowflake, try to delete that user. And whenever you need a user after a few days, you can create that user. Mostly in the Snowflake account in the company or in the project, they have their own so they have their own project user, a single user with which the people log in with a different role-based access, and they do the process. So keep in mind how many users you have. If you are an Snowflake admin, then keep in mind that how many current active user you have in a Snowflake and how many users are actually active. Look into the stages. So there are internal table in the Snowflake by which you can see what is the stage size of that of all that stage, and depending on that, try to see that how much space it is consuming, because it costs a lot. In an external stage, there is no cost by default. But for example, external stage is used to bring the data from outside. For example, I have a data in S3 bucket. I want to bring the data from S3 bucket to some table in a Snowflake. Then I have to create an external stage that will connect to S3 bucket. And accordingly, with snowpipe or copy command, you can bring the data into the Snowflake table. Now, when you are bringing the data, there will be no cost in the from the stage level. But for example, you are offloading the data from Snowflake to S3. Means you are getting out or taking out the data from Snowflake and putting into S3. In that case, the external stage will cost, or that process will cost at least. So keep in mind whenever you create an external stage, first of all, there are multiple things also. When we insert the data also in the external stage, and there are multiple transformation you have applied during the data ingestion into from the external stage, at that time also it costs a lot. So whenever you are moving the data from an external source, first of all, you keep in mind that data is from outside to inside, from outside to the Snowflake. The second thing, don't use any complex calculation, complex transformation, complex cleaning activity while using the external stage. Now we want to talk about very important facilities in the Snowflake, which is called, or feature in the Snowflake, which is called zero copy cloning. This is very useful. So quickly, like you can go into my previous video to understand in deep in a very practical. Also have done in that video, like what is zero copy cloning, and where does data move, or where is there is a cost in the data or not. But just for a small explanation, so in zero copy data, there is no copy of the data. So the macro partition of the data is in a single place, and if you have created two table out of it, so both this table will point to the same macro partition, and the new table or the clone table which you have created will not create any cost or any credit. But there is a catch. Like whenever you create or clone a table in a zero copy cloning, and you do any transformation on the second table, on the clone table, then the second table will create its own micro partition and it will capture the data. Now, for example, you have two table, both the table, first is the, I'll write it here, table A. This is the original table, and there is another table called table A clone. Okay. Now, table A and table A clone both are referring to the same micro partition. Now, after a few days, you have done some transformation or done some DML activity on table A, and and you have also done some DML activity on table A clone. So both these will have then another separate micro partition. So whenever you do any DML activity on the clone table or clone data on the clone table, so that will create its own micro partition, and that macro partition will hold the new data set, and it will create a cost in the Snowflake credit. So Snowflake credit or Snowflake cost will be occurred whenever you do a DML activity on the clone table. So this you have to keep in mind. It's a zero copy cloning. It doesn't mean that your data is not copied. Yes, in the ideal situation, I agree that data is not copied, but whenever you do a DML activity on the clone table, yes, the new macro partition is created in the Snowflake, and that will cost you. The last thing which I want to mention here is whenever you do data ingestion, data loading activity, if you want to do the incremental data load, then use the Snowflake feature. Like you can use Snowflake pipe, that can be useful in Snowflake incremental load, or Snowflake stream can be used in that place. So that will be very helpful and useful. Whenever you are creating an external stage while doing the data load in a Snowflake, try to keep all the same thing which I have mentioned in this video. Don't apply any transformation. Try to keep the table format or the compression as gzip. That is more optimized in Snowflake copy. And the table format which is more optimized in Snowflake cost is CSV format. Try to keep in this format. If there is no other option, obviously you have to use some other file option, file format option. So don't apply any complex transformation, any complex cleaning of data while doing the table load. Once you load the data inside the Snowflake, then you can do all the transformation. And so we use Snowflake for most of the ELT process, not for the ETL process, because we load the data into the Snowflake, and then with the help of SQL queries or DBT, some or another cloud tool, we try to do the ELT process, not the ETL process. Because once we get the snow data inside the Snowflake, then you can do the things, and there you can manage the cost effectively, rather than your data is outside and you're doing the external, you're using the external stage to manage that data and also applying the transformation in that data. So this was all about Snowflake cost optimization. So this is not a performance optimization video. This is a cost optimization video. And I hope like you will understand like most of the things. So whenever there is too much of cost and you have to analyze the root cause for that, you can look into all these topics, and 100% you will get something which will reduce the overall cost of your Snowflake application or the account. I hope this will be useful for you. This will be also helpful for you. Do subscribe to my channel. Also, spread this channel to your friend who want to move into the data engineering field, or who are juniors in the data engineering field and want to enhance their expertise in the data engineering field. So Snowflake is very important topic in the data engineering, and you need Snowflake. Almost all the projects, all the companies uses Snowflake. फिर मिलेंगे नई वीडियो और नए इंटरेस्टिंग चीज के साथ. तब तक के लिए अपना ख्याल रखिए. टेक केयर एंड हैप्पी लर्निंग.